Chapter 1. On New Year's Eve, my wife suggested she pretend to be her childhood sweetheart Ethan Miller's girlfriend and go home with him for the holidays. I tried everything to stop her, begging her not to go. That night, because she didn't get to meet her supposed granddaughter-in-law, Ethan's grandmother drank pesticide and committed suicide in despair. Ethan, who had been raised by his grandmother, was consumed by grief and died of depression. When my wife found out, she pushed me out of the car on our way back and ran me over repeatedly. None of this would have happened if you had just let me go home with Ethan I hate. He's dead, and you have to pay with your life you don't deserve to live unexpectedly. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on that New Year's Eve. When I heard my wife's question, I nodded without the slightest hesitation. If you want to go home with him, then go. Should I get you two some holiday gifts? The first thing I saw when I opened my eyes was the familiar face of my wife, Victoria Hayes. Sincere, did you hear what I said? I won't be going back to your hometown with you this year. I promised I'd go to Ethan's place with him. You know his grandmother is just desperate for a granddaughter-in-law. If I go back pretending to be his girlfriend, it'll fulfill the old woman's wish. The words, identical to those from my past life, sent an involuntary shiver down my spine. I had been reborn. Realizing this, I answered quickly, nodding my head. I heard you. You should go. Victoria froze, a little surprised. Really? I thought you wouldn't agree. I curved my lips into a perfectly sincere smile. You said it yourself. It's to fulfill an old woman's wish. Of course I'd agree. After all, you're just pretending. There are no real feelings involved, right? A flicker of guilt crossed Victoria's face, but she quickly seemed to relax, throwing her arms around me in a happy embrace. That's wonderful, Sincere. I knew you were the best. Don't worry, I'll be back right after the holidays to visit your family with you. But, she said, carefully watching my expression, Ethan's grandmother is so eager to have a granddaughter-in-law, she might push us to get a marriage license. It's no big deal, though. We'll get a divorce in a few months, and I'll still be your wife. To make it up to you, we can get our license then, okay? We had been married for 5 years, but Victoria and I had never gotten a legal marriage certificate. At the time, she said she didn't want to be tied down by a piece of paper, and since we loved each other so much, it didn't matter. Hearing this, I just nodded faintly again. Sure, but you can't get a license until after the holidays when the government offices reopen anyway. You might as well stay there a few more days. It's no trouble. Perhaps because she had gotten my approval so easily, Victoria finally grew suspicious. Really, Sincere? You used to hate Ethan so much. How come you're not angry at all hearing this? Yes, she knew it well. I had always despised the man who intruded upon our marriage. Ethan and Victoria were childhood sweethearts, neighbors since they were kids. They shared memories I knew nothing about, tangled in an ambiguous, unspoken affection. As adults, Ethan moved to this city for her. They would often go out together, and if I suggested joining them, Victoria would get angry and accuse me of not trusting her. I used to get jealous, my mind racing with suspicions about what kind of sordid secrets they might be hiding. But now, I no longer had the energy to guess. The brutal end of my previous life had already proven everything. So I pulled her tightly into my arms, hiding the tears welling in my eyes. It's okay. I understand. Your relationship is pure. I was too narrow-minded before. Whatever you want to do, I will support you. Until the very last moment, I love you. After all, if I didn't support her, what awaited me was death. Chapter 2. In my past life, when Victoria told me she wanted to go home with Ethan for the holidays, I refused without a second thought. Not only because she was already my wife, but also because my parents had prepared a generous gift for her that year. After much persuasion, I finally convinced her not to leave with Ethan. Who would have thought that during New Year's Eve dinner, Victoria would get a call saying Ethan's grandmother had committed suicide by turning on the gas. Ethan was crying hysterically on the phone. My grandma was the only family I had left. What am I supposed to do now? Victoria, you knew she just wanted a granddaughter-in-law. Why couldn't you just pretend and come back with me consumed by grief? Ethan committed suicide by slitting his wrists 3 days later. He called Victoria right before he died, but tragically she missed the call. When she learned what had happened, Victoria completely broke down, crying and screaming in our room for days. When she finally emerged, her eyes were devoid of any emotion. Later, when the holiday break ended, Victoria offered to drive on our way back, saying she wanted to practice her driving. But just as we got on the highway, she opened the car door, kicked me out, and then stomped on the gas, running me over again and again. The sudden, excruciating pain all over my body was nothing compared to the agony in my heart. I forced myself to ask her why. Victoria's eyes were wild with madness as she squeezed my neck. Why? You have the nerve to ask me why? You killed Ethan. If you hadn't stopped me from going, his grandmother wouldn't have died, and he wouldn't have chosen to kill himself and leave me forever. I hate you. I wish I had never married you, that we had never met. She stabbed me in the chest again and again with a knife she had hidden, letting the blood splatter on her face like a demon. After I had taken my last breath, Victoria turned the blade on her own throat, choosing to die. Ethan, this time, I can finally come home with you. The memory sent a cold sweat down my back, and my heart ached even more fiercely. When I pulled myself from the painful memory, Victoria was smiling, satisfied with my answer. Great, I'll go pack my things now and head to his hometown with Ethan. Sincere, you'll just have to put up with it this year. Remember to explain things to your parents for me. With that, she went into the room and started packing. A few minutes later, Ethan's car horn sounded from downstairs. When he saw me, the man nodded with a smile. My apologies for the trouble, Mr. Clark. I'll bring Victoria back after the holidays. Then they held hands and got into the car. Only after their car was long out of sight did the nanny come over and ask me cautiously, "Sir, your mother called to ask when you'll be heading home." I sighed. "Right away. Tell my mom she doesn't need to bring out the gifts she prepared for Victoria." I could feel the pity in the servants' eyes when they looked at me. They all knew I had pursued Victoria for 3 years before she finally agreed to be my girlfriend. I had fallen for her at first sight in college. Back then, she was the center of everyone's universe and naturally wouldn't look twice at an ordinary guy like me. Because she complained that I couldn't afford the luxury bags she liked, I worked myself to the bone, borrowing money from everywhere to start a business. I endured countless hardships to build the career I have today. The day my company went public, Victoria finally accepted my proposal. In my past life, I loved her so much that I completely ignored the rumors that she was only with me for my money. I firmly believed that she had feelings for me deep down, but death was a brutal slap in the face that woke me up completely. This time I would not be soft-hearted again. On the way home, my secretary called to inform me that Victoria's father, Franklin Hayes, had once again embezzled company funds to gamble and asked if I wanted to stop him. Franklin was a gambling addict. In my past life, I had arranged a cushy do-nothing job for him at the company, but he was still unsatisfied and used his position to embezzle money for gambling. I had my complaints back then, but Victoria was nonchalant about it, even lecturing me that to love someone meant loving their family too. With my tacit approval, her father grew bolder and nearly destroyed my company. Thinking of this, I said in a low voice, "It's fine, let him gamble." This time, things would proceed by the book. At New Year's Eve dinner, my parents didn't ask too many questions. My mother just kept putting food on my plate, letting me feel the warmth of family I hadn't felt in a long time. That night, I was scrolling through my phone, my social media feed flooded with posts from Victoria. Pictures of them setting off fireworks, preparing New Year's Eve dinner, a group photo with relatives. I liked them one by one, then turned off my phone and went to sleep. The next morning, Victoria called me. Sincere, Ethan's grandma was so happy to hear the news she's pushing us to get a marriage license, so it looks like I'll have to play along with this wedding charade. I grunted in response. "Sure, that's fine. It's all to make the old lady happy." Hearing no displeasure in my voice, Victoria breathed a sigh of relief, then seemed to remember something. By the way, I remember you know a lot of wedding planners, right? Could you help me prepare for my wedding with Ethan? Oh, and my dowry should be a Rolls-Royce Phantom. You can get that for me too, okay? Chapter 3. I was so stunned by her words that I actually laughed out loud. All these years I hadn't even bought myself a Rolls-Royce Phantom, yet she had her eyes on one. And she had the audacity to ask me for it so shamelessly. Suppressing the cold anger in my heart, I feigned distress. I'd love to buy it for you, Victoria, but the company's cash flow is a bit tight lately. I don't have that kind of liquid cash on hand. Besides, it's just a fake wedding. Is the dowry really necessary? Victoria immediately sounded unhappy. How can you not even manage this one small request? Sincere Clark, do you even have me in your heart? I couldn't blame her for saying that. Ever since we got together, whatever she wanted, no matter how difficult, I would find a way to buy it for her. In her words, loving her meant being willing to spend money on her. The more you spent, the more you loved her. But I wasn't a fool anymore. Why don't we just skip the dowry? It's just a fake marriage after all. Your relationship with Ethan is so strong. Why do you need to care about these superficial things? The moment I said that, Victoria got even angrier. How can my wedding not have a dowry? Hearing this, I offered a helpful suggestion. How about you have Ethan pay for it first? Then after you two get divorced, I'll reimburse you. That should make you happy, right? She huffed a couple of times but ultimately didn't reject the idea. When the holiday break ended, Victoria completely forgot her promise to come back and see my parents. She just said that Ethan's grandmother adored her and wouldn't let her leave, urging them to hold the wedding by the middle of the next month. On the phone, I pretended to be sad. But you only said you were pretending to be Ethan's girlfriend and would be back soon. How did it escalate to getting married so quickly? Victoria gave a few perfunctory excuses. Oh, well, it can't be helped. Why are you making things difficult for an old woman? We can just get a divorce later, and it'll all be fine. She hung up abruptly, completely disregarding my feelings. A few days later, I saw a post on Ethan's social media feed. Even if it's just a dream, you are truly mine now. The accompanying picture was of him and Victoria in their wedding attire. The irony was that in our 5 years of marriage, Victoria and I had never once taken wedding photos. At the time, she said she disliked having her picture taken and thought wedding photos were tacky, not wanting to show off the fact that she was with me. Now, it seemed she just didn't want to take them with me. The wedding was grand, at least judging from the Rolls-Royce Phantom visible in the corner of the photos on social media. It was far beyond what Ethan could afford. I continued to send her goodnight messages every evening, playing the part of a perfectly attentive, spineless husband. Half a month later, Grandma Miller had a heart attack and needed bypass surgery. They couldn't afford the medical bills, so Victoria came to me again. I used the same excuse, saying I had no money, which forced Ethan to take out high-interest loans. 3 months later, Victoria called to say her card had been frozen. It was a black card I had given her when we first got married, one with no credit limit. The only way it could be frozen was if it had been completely maxed out. It seemed that over the years I had cultivated her spending habits to an impressive level. It was about time. Time to settle the accounts of the past few years. I feigned excitement. The company just closed a few big deals. Come home. I'll cover the money you borrowed. Hearing the answer she wanted, she bought a ticket for the earliest ride home. After a few months apart, Victoria looked much healthier, and her once flat stomach seemed to have a slight curve to it. When she saw me looking, she covered it with her clothes and held out her hand. Where's the money? Do you have any idea how miserable I've been these past few months, not being able to buy any bags? Ethan still owes money on those online loans. Hurry up and give me the money so I can help him pay them off. I handed her a document, but it wasn't the bank card she was expecting. Victoria's face instantly darkened. What is this? This is a copy of my marriage certificate with Ethan. I already explained everything to you. Why are you still hung up on this? Seeing her like this, I smiled. Don't be anxious. I'm just confirming with you that you and Ethan Miller are now legally husband and wife, correct? She pouted impatiently. Yes, and I already told you we'll get a divorce later. Are you going to keep nagging me about this? I spread my hands, speaking calmly. In that case, since I have absolutely no relation to you, why on earth should I be the one to pay your debts? Chapter 4. Victoria froze, her eyes widening as she stared at me. What did you say, Sincere Clark? Everyone knows you're my husband. What's the point of saying this now? Can you really bear to see me without money? My heart was terrifyingly calm. I crossed my arms and looked at her coldly. So what if they know? Let's not even mention that we never got a marriage license. Besides, in the beginning you only said you would pretend to be Ethan's girlfriend. The marriage license, the wedding, and even the pregnancy. Did you ever once consider my existence, or were you just treating me like a fool? Victoria, people can't be too greedy. Victoria subconsciously covered her stomach, tears welling in her eyes. How could you be like this? Everyone knows I gave you 5 years of my life. Now I'm just fulfilling Grandma Miller's wish, and you're going to turn your back on me like this. And you promised to give me the money. How can you go back on your word now? I watched her with a blank expression, feeling nothing at all. That was because I loved you, so I was willing to spend money on you. But things are different now. Victoria, don't think for a second that I don't know about the shady affair you and Ethan have been having. She tensed, then finally broke down, her voice choked with sobs. Sincere Clark, you've gone too far in my past life. I couldn't bear to see Victoria suffer the slightest grievance. The moment she shed a tear, I would panic, casting aside all my dignity to coax her until she was happy again. But now I just watched her calmly. Are you done crying? If you are, take your things and get out of my house. She paused, then cried even louder. Just then, the nanny frantically tried to block Ethan, who was trying to storm into the house. I waved my hand. Let him in. Ethan rushed to Victoria's side, pulling her into his arms and carefully wiping the tears from her cheeks. When he looked up at me, his eyes were filled with rage. Sincere Clark, I used to think you were a good person. Now I see you're just a scheming little weasel who takes advantage of others. I heard everything from outside. You'll get what's coming to you for abandoning Victoria so cruelly. Hearing this, I couldn't help but laugh. Me? Get what's coming to me? Then what about the 5 years you and Victoria were having an affair? Was that just me doing charity work? They both froze, shocked that I had known about their sordid business all along. In my past life, I was kept in the dark for a long time, truly believing they were just friends with a pure platonic relationship. It wasn't until the night before I died that I accidentally discovered that Victoria, who had borrowed my computer, hadn't logged out of her messaging app. To my horror, her pinned chat wasn't with me, but with Ethan. What was even more unbearable was that their endless chat history was littered with hotel check and records from the past 5 years. Every time I went on a business trip, every time Victoria suggested a solo vacation, they were actually trysts with Ethan. Victoria's mouth opened and closed, guilt flashing in her eyes. That doesn't prove anything. Fine. I'll divorce Ethan right now and get a marriage certificate with you. Will that make you happy? She was treating me like a complete patsy. I handed her another document, one she had made me sign before we were married. It states very clearly on here that after marriage, both parties must fulfill their marital duties and must not engage in acts that violate those duties. You were the one who begged me to sign this for your peace of mind. Now take a look. Have you abided by it? Victoria's face twisted, her expression contorting with anger. So you agreed so readily back then just to wash your hands of me, is that it? You've got some nerve with that. She grabbed Ethan's hand, ready to leave. Let's go, Ethan. I refuse to believe we can't make it without Sincere Clark from now on. We don't have to hide anymore. Ethan spat viciously in my direction. If I had known you were this kind of petty man, I would have proposed to Victoria myself back then. You wouldn't be gloating like this now. Ugh, not wanting to waste another glance on them, I called for the nanny to show them out. Not long after I sat down, a call came from Victoria's father, Franklin Hayes. He started yelling immediately. What's going on, son-in-law? Some people claiming to be from the fraud department just showed up saying I embezzled company funds. Why didn't you take care of this for me? Chapter 5. Franklin Hayes had always acted as if I was blessed to marry his daughter, and he never showed me any respect. In the past I had been deferential, afraid of genuinely upsetting my father-in-law. But now, I no longer bothered to hide my true feelings. Whether you embezzled the funds or not, don't you know in your own heart? At these words, Franklin exploded. What kind of attitude is that, Clark, let me tell you? Having a wonderful person like Victoria as your wife is a blessing you've earned over several lifetimes. You're not helping me now. Do you still see me as your father-in-law? Hurry up and handle this, otherwise I'll have to go to jail. So he did know he was breaking the law. I casually crossed my legs. I can't get involved in something like this. It's useless, no matter how much you plead with me. Franklin's furious voice nearly burst my eardrum. Say that again? Do you believe I'll have Victoria divorce you? Do you know how many men are lining up to be my son-in-law? This time it was my turn to laugh. You don't have to tell me. We're already done. Didn't your precious Victoria tell you? We never even got a marriage license. Franklin was utterly stunned and began to stammer. Well, what? If you weren't legally married, why did you even marry Victoria? What were these last 5 years about? Yes. What were these last 5 years about? They were about me deluding myself into thinking I could eventually make Victoria completely mine. They were about Victoria enjoying my wealth while keeping an escape route open for herself. But having died once, I understood clearly now. That woman's heart would never belong to me. Let's just say I was out of my mind, all right? I've come to my senses now, so you can stop yelling. Just wait for your jail cell and dream about your son-in-law in there with that. I hung up decisively. After a moment's thought, I called the nanny and had her pack up all of Victoria's belongings and ship them to her father's address. That father-daughter duo, neither was an easy character. My secretary called to report that Franklin was causing a scene at the company, demanding an explanation. Ignore him. Tell the investigators to speed up their process. Also, find a way to spread the word about all the money he borrowed and never paid back. Leaning back on the sofa, I felt a sense of relief I had never experienced before. That night, I received calls from many people, including a furious one from Victoria. Why were all my things sent to my dad's place? How long are you going to punish me before you finally stop? Why is my dad saying he's about to go to jail? What did you do to him? Sincere Clark, you heartless and fickle man, you're going to hell. Sipping my drink, I enjoyed her frantic rage, feeling quite content. I simply blocked her number. The next day when I arrived at the company, I found the lobby completely mobbed. Victoria, standing in the crowd, saw me and pointed a finger right at my nose. You're inhuman, Sincere Clark. You're running this huge company, yet you still have to make things difficult for my dad. He's about to go to jail now. Are you satisfied? I spent 5 years with you. Was it all for nothing? Seeing this, I signaled for my secretary to call security and said coolly, I've already made things very clear. If you continue to harass me, I don't mind arranging for you to have a chat with the police down at the station. Her mother, Diana Hayes, who was standing behind her, pulled her back and stepped forward to face me. Sincere, you need to calm down too. Victoria has told me everything, and she certainly did some things wrong. But you've been together for so many years. Search your heart and ask yourself, haven't you done things wrong too? Otherwise, how could a good girl like Victoria get mixed up with Ethan? In the end, it's just because you weren't good enough. I had to laugh at her ability to twist the truth. I simply motioned for security to move forward. Seeing my attitude, Victoria's face grew even uglier. She gritted her teeth and suddenly shouted to the crowd, Sincere Clark, acting so heartless and fickle now, how can you face the memory of our child who died because of you? Chapter 6. I froze, my heart sinking uncontrollably. A year into our marriage, Victoria got pregnant. After 2 days and nights of labor, she gave birth to our child, Iris. Iris was a premature baby and spent her first 3 months mostly in the hospital. After she came home, she was cared for by a nanny I hired in Victoria. At her first birthday party, all our friends and relatives came to celebrate. But after the party ended, we discovered that Iris was gone. I was frantic and immediately called the police. They investigated for days only to return with the news of Iris's death. Based on the on-site investigation, it was your family's nanny who took the child when no one was looking. As for the brutal murder, it might be related to your business rivals, Mr. Clark. Hearing this, Victoria fainted on the spot. When she woke up, she beat and hammered at me. It's all your fault. If it weren't for you, this nanny would never have come to our house. Iris would never have been taken away. You, the one who got Iris killed looking at her, who was on the verge of a complete breakdown. My heart felt like it was being fried in oil. Our lives were consumed by grief during that period. Victoria spent her days crying. Every time I thought of Iris, of the life lost because of me, I could only try to be even better to Victoria. It seemed like the only way to atone for those mistakes. Snapping back to the present, Victoria's expression had grown even fouler. Well, didn't you promise me you would be good to me forever? Have you forgotten so quickly? Have you forgotten how Iris died? She wailed, as if she had suffered a terrible injustice, sobbing uncontrollably in her mother's arms. A glint of cunning flashed in Diana Hayes's eyes, and she sighed deeply. Look sincere about her getting a license with that Ethan Miller. Our Victoria was in the wrong. But you have your faults too. If it weren't for you, my grandson would be running around by now. How about this? Let's both take a step back. You forgive Victoria and get her father out of jail. The most important thing is for the three of you to live a good life together. What was important? It was just my money they were after. Seeing me remain silent, Diana grew anxious. What are you still hesitating for, Sincere? I'll handle the matter with Victoria and Ethan. I'll make sure it doesn't delay you two getting your license. If you're still not happy, you can go and beat up that Ethan. That should be fine, right? Victoria was not happy to hear this. Mom, what are you talking about? Why should he hit Ethan? I don't agree. Diana smacked her on the back of the head. You shut up. Do you still want your designer bags? Do you want your father to get out? Victoria's face turned shades of green and white, but in the end she said nothing. After a long moment of contemplation, I shook my head decisively. Reconciliation is impossible. I'm not going to be a patsy. Diana was furious, and her tone became harsh. What do you mean, a patsy? I've already told her to get a divorce from Ethan. Don't you still love her? What is there that you can't get over? I raised my hand and pointed at Victoria's stomach. For instance, being expected to raise her child with another man. Hearing this, Victoria could no longer contain her temper. She raised her hand to slap me, but I blocked it in time. Are you insane, Sincere Clark? Isn't it enough that you got your own child killed? Now you want me to abort my child with Ethan? You'll get what you deserve. I had to laugh. Do you have any right to talk about Iris? Can Iris even be compared to that bastard in your belly? In your dreams, besides, the one who personally smothered Iris wasn't me, but the nanny who has already been punished. I have spent these years atoning for Iris, and I don't mind spending the rest of my life atoning. But you don't even think about getting a single benefit from me seeing my refusal to budge. Diana lost her composure. This is unacceptable. Our Victoria was with you for 5 years. You've wasted her youth. How can you just abandon her like this? This is irresponsible. If you refuse to get married, then you must at least pay $100 million for emotional distress. I was so shocked by her outrageous demand that I was speechless for a long time. Finally, seeing the crowd of onlookers growing, I just tossed out a single sentence. Stop daydreaming. With a wave of my hand, I had the security guards pack them up and kick them out. Chapter 7. The security guards were very reliable, completely disregarding their identities and shoving them out the door. The farce was finally over. An idea came to me. I had my lawyer compile all the evidence of Victoria's affair and post it online, even paying a few major influencers to share it. In no time, Victoria and Ethan were being viciously torn apart online, and I was enjoying my freedom, relishing a life no longer spent being cheated on. Until one evening, after a business dinner, I saw Ethan waiting for me at the entrance. When he saw me, he rushed forward, his face contorted with suppressed fury. "Why did you post that information online? Do you have any idea that my grandmother got sick with anger because of it?" I just said, "Oh, what has that to do with me? Isn't it all true?" The man choked with anger, a vicious look in his eyes. "Of course it has to do with you. She's sick now and needs surgery. You have to pay for it. Otherwise, I'll make Victoria leave you for good even now." He naively believed that this woman's existence was still important to me. I offered a kind reminder. "Have you paid off all those online loans you took out?" Ethan froze, his body trembling with rage. "You did it on purpose. You deliberately set me up to take out those loans, didn't you? How could you be so despicable?" I couldn't be bothered with him anymore and turned to leave. Before I walked away, I added a final piece of advice. "Maybe you should think about whether your life took a turn for the worse after you got together with Victoria." With that, I walked away for good. Later, Franklin Hayes was taken away from the company. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison for embezzlement. Before he was taken, he cursed me out, calling me heartless. Diana tried to see me several times, but I always avoided her. Her public tantrums failed to get any response from me. After seeing the news online, Grandma Miller was deeply ashamed and, one night, committed suicide by drinking pesticide. When I heard the news, I couldn't help but sigh. Even in this new life, some things hadn't changed. His mother's death extinguished any remaining love Ethan had for Victoria, and they began to argue constantly. Burdened by debt, Ethan became irritable and an alcoholic, frequently resorting to beating and cursing Victoria. One of these beatings caused her to have a miscarriage. The day she was rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment, I happened to be at the same hospital for my annual checkup. In the hallway, Ethan and Diana were having a massive argument. "How could you hit her, Ethan? It's bad enough you have no money, but you also caused Victoria to have a miscarriage. You're a scumbag, and you have to take responsibility for this." Ethan impatiently pushed her away. How was I supposed to know she was so fragile that a few shoves would make her miscarry? Besides, did I force her to get pregnant? She seemed happy enough when she was spreading her legs for me. Diana was so furious she could barely speak, pointing at him, speechless. "She only went back home with you for your dead mother's sake. How could you say something like that?" Ethan spat at her viciously. "Bullshit, my mom never said a thing. She was the one who eagerly ran to my mom and said she wanted to be her daughter-in-law. She was the one acting cheap with that." He stormed out the door. So that was it. It was all a lie. I had been so thoroughly deceived in my past life. Even at the moment of my death, it never occurred to me that it was all just a game to her. How pathetic. The doors to the operating room opened at that moment, and a weak Victoria was wheeled out. The doctor gave some instructions. "The patient needs to rest now. The family shouldn't disturb her too much." My secretary was about to suggest we leave when Victoria, lying on the gurney, suddenly opened her eyes. When she saw me, her eyes lit up with joy. "Husband, are you here to take me home?" Chapter 8. I curled my lip in disgust. What nonsense. "Who's your husband?" "Your husband just left." Victoria, having just woken up, struggled to speak, her eyes fixed on me. "Husband, I really know I was wrong now. You have no idea. Ethan has completely changed. He even hit me. Can't we go back to how things were before? I don't need much. Just give me money to help me recover. I'll stay by your side forever after this. Please, I can't live without you." This woman was truly shameless. I looked at her coldly. "Remembering my good qualities now? Isn't it a bit too late, Victoria? Unfortunately for you, I don't love you anymore, and I don't need you. Whose baby you want to have is your business. Just don't come near me. It's disgusting." Under the harsh lights, the woman's face grew even paler. "You don't love me anymore? How is that possible? I don't believe it. I don't believe you could be so heartless as to abandon me before. You would agree to anything I did. Why did you suddenly change? Why?" Probably because my death in my past life was too agonizing. I didn't want to be killed by the person I loved ever again. I didn't want to be run over by her again and again. That was too hard to forget. Tears streamed down her cheeks, making her look even more pitiful. "Tell me you don't want me anymore?" I nodded decisively. "Of course. I don't want to plant the seeds of my own future destruction. Love, reluctance. It was all just smoke from the past." As I left, Victoria, lying on the bed, tried to sit up but only ended up falling heavily. I didn't help her up. I just left for good. Not long after, Ethan had his leg broken by debt collectors for failing to pay up, leaving him completely unable to manage Victoria. Defeated, the woman came to me several times, begging me to take her back, but I sent her away each time. When she couldn't see me in person, she started messaging me on every social media platform, pleading for a reconciliation. I blocked her on all of them, until my life was finally free of her disruptions. A month later, her miscarriage wounds failed to heal properly and became infected. She died in the hospital that night. When I heard the news, I was meeting a potential marriage partner my parents had introduced me to. The girl was gentle and poised, a completely different type from Victoria. I thought to myself, from now on, I would have to change completely. Victoria's story, the moment Ethan kicked my stomach, the indescribable pain made my mind go hazy. I couldn't scream. I didn't even have the strength to beg for mercy before I fell into unconsciousness. In a daze, images I had never experienced before flashed through my mind. I saw a world where I didn't go back to Ethan's home with him. That night, his grandmother drank pesticide and killed herself. A grief-stricken Ethan called me, accusing me of being heartless. Then I saw myself grabbing Sincere's chest, demanding to know why he hadn't agreed. In the dream, he looked helpless, his eyes filled with nothing but deep love for me. But I was only focused on venting my anger. On the drive back to the city, I kicked him out of the car and, in a fit of rage, ran him over again and again until his body was mangled beyond recognition. Sincere was dead, killed by my own hands. When I opened my eyes again and the doctor told me I had miscarried, I didn't feel much sadness. My heart ached until it was numb, and my whole body trembled uncontrollably. So, in the past life, it was me who killed Sincere. Was it too late? Could I still make it up to him? My heart wavered. I couldn't be sure if the Sincere of today still loved me as he had before. When I was wheeled out of the operating room and saw him, I was ecstatic. God must have taken pity on me to let me see him one more time. But the look in Sincere's eyes had changed. It was so cold. He said he didn't love me anymore. How could that be? It wasn't until Sincere's figure disappeared completely that I finally broke down, covering my face and weeping. It was my fault. I had lost the man who had always loved me. Ethan's leg was broken, and he kicked me out. That man and I were completely finished. When my mother took me home, I still clung to a sliver of hope. "Mom, if I go and beg Sincere again, do you think we'll have a chance to get back together?" But my mother slapped me hard across the face. "Do you know your father is never getting out? And you still have the mind to think about these things. If it weren't for your selfishness, would things have ended up like this? It's all because of you our family is ruined, do you understand?" She stormed off, her eyes no longer holding a place for me, her daughter. Later, I tried every way I could to contact Sincere, but there was no response. He probably really didn't love me anymore. So be it. I deserved it all. The miscarriage left my body weak, and the wound on my body wouldn't heal. I begged my mother to take me to a hospital, but she refused. "Get lost if I didn't still need you to be there for my funeral. Who would have taken you in?" Stop causing trouble in a daze. I suddenly remembered that this was how I used to treat Sincere. No patience, no affection. Later, Ethan died. He died on the cold streets. The boy who grew up with me had finally turned into someone I didn't recognize before dying completely. My wound became infected. I couldn't hold on. My breathing grew more and more difficult. Burning with fever, all I could do was lie on the bed gasping for air. It hurt so much. When Sincere died in my past life, did he feel as hopeless as I do now? Now I'm experiencing that same pain. In the end, I couldn't hold on any longer. As I closed my eyes, only one final thought remained in my mind. "Sincere, I'm sorry. In our next life, let's never meet again."